Well, let's see. That light will go off shortly here, and then we'll see how it turns out.
That isn't too bad.
Nah, it's not bad.
That looks pretty good. And actually, that on when you watch it, it shows a much bigger picture anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
This is kind of zoomed in, what I'm getting.
Yeah,
Okay.
If you actually watch it, it's usually
Okay. So, looks like we're up live. We got Aura. I don't recall Aura Pilot. So, hi, Aura. How's it going? Chris apparently is making dinner. Zeoxio's here. And Zeoxio, we're planning on coming up there, probably in Butte, what, a little after 1?
I would imagine something like that. If we leave here around noon, we'll be there about 1.
Probably a little after 1 on Thursday there. So let's see. Gold pans. Okay, yeah. Coming through just fine here. Everyone's doing good. Hey, Truth Seeker. Hey, Earl. Okay, so everything's running good. So let's start the pre-show as usual, just kind of a weekly update. Yeah, I'm doing it okay. Hey, Cherokee, did you get your book? And yeah, we're surviving. It's warm in here. The only negative is the truck really doesn't like to start in these cold temperatures. But aside from that, it's been running okay. And the tires I got are providing good traction. So everything's working okay there. Just you got to warm it up really well. Okay, so there we got, it's a little darker there now. Now it's adjusting. Okay. That's not too bad. It's so confusing. They're so mean. Anyhow, so that's okay. And got most of the stuff built for the head frame and everything. Didn't get any more fabricating done this week. They were, kind of busy over there. I did a little bit of stuff, just stripping some material, and yeah. Let's see. Yeah. So I say that worked out okay. Okay, Cherokee. Maybe that's because, another news, I've got a double hernia. Don't know how, don't know why. No big deal at the moment, but of course I'm 1,200 miles from my insurance zone. So we're going to have to see financing first in terms of, I just turned 65, so there's Medicare involved potentially. Might be able to transfer the Medicaid up here. I don't know. There's people to do that for a living. They know what they're doing. I don't. I'll start talking to them tomorrow. No big urgency, no emergency, but now would be a great time, since I'm currently unemployed, to go ahead and get that done. Focus on doing paperwork and research. My principal has told me to research on getting the, some other potential mining claims staked and such. So that would be something I can do,
right here
from the computer,
right here.
etc. And I say it's really not a big deal, but I've had a hernia before, about 30 years ago, and yeah, it was uncomfortable the first couple of days. Hey, Aries, how's it going? So
hey, everybody.
Oh, Eva.
Hey, everybody. I got a pet pig. His name is Wilbur.
I got Eva a little Valentine's Day present, and it had that as part of it.
And this is the tea mug it came in. That says Hogs and Kisses. And I also got a deluxe pumice stone with a handle to deal with the feet. I'm living the good life.
Chris says hi, Eva.
Hi, Chris.
And so anyhow, So I'll get
Tell
working
Chris
on
to call
that.
me.
Thursday, we're going to be heading to Butte. There's going to be a presentation on gravity concentration methods. And I will check. I'm going to take my camcorder, but I think they're actually going to record it and put it on their website, basically. So I should be able to just get a link and post that up. Cherokee says, Happy Valentine's Day, Eva.
Happy Valentine's Day, Cherokee, and everybody else.
Yeah.
And by the way, he's experiencing technical difficulties with his video editing program, so that's up in the air.
I was just getting onto that. Apparently, I'm using Windows 7. Apparently, it's now so old that my video editing program can't get updates or whatever. I think they talk to each other. It's an electronic conspiracy. But anyhow, so I'm probably going to have to update my Windows so I can update my video editing so I can start making more videos. I don't have anything of any substance this week. I'm just going to do some tourist, scenery stuff and everything. But so we'll see how quickly that gets resolved. And let's see. We're going to be still working on the university, trying to get them to help out with the research on the Montana bee. And it's the negotiations are progressing basically, but we haven't got to the point where any kind of decisions can be reached by anybody at this point. We're just kind of talking back and forth and getting the basics down. It's been 10 below zero.
Yesterday morning, it was 22 below.
22 below? Yeah, I think it was
22 below.
I think I looked out, it was like 17 below or something. Yeah, first thing in the morning. And it's weird because there's like a kind of an ice fog out there.
Yeah.
It's not like clouds, it's a
I
haze.
think because west of us there was some warmer weather. But Missoula's been 10 to 20 degrees warmer than we have. And that's just enough to put that moisture in.
And so I don't know, but it's an unusual look. You look out and it's just... It's snowing now?
Yeah, just lightly. There's flurries coming down.
Yeah, just a little bit starting to come down. It's kind of weird. The snow never melts. It's nice because it doesn't stick to your windshield. You just go foof and it's clean. So I imagine once it gets a little warmer, life will be actually less pleasant because...
But you broke a windshield wiper on the ice.
Well, yeah, but
yeah, that can happen.
It got melted.
Stuck to the window
because
you turn it on and rip it.
Well, no, I was just... trying to loosen it up and it broke, but that's okay. If it broke, it needed to be replaced.
It does now.
Say that's about it. We'll see what we shall see. No other big things to report up here. And do we have, before we get started and everything, do we have any questions of any particular kind? I know that this spring I'll be doing some staking probably too, so that'll be good to show people how that's done up here. It's nice you only have to put in 5 stakes per claim instead of 7. And since the corners can match other claims, theoretically you could put in a new claim with as little as 2 additional stakes, 1 corner and 1 discovery monument, depending on how it worked. So that's nice, especially as you got to use 4x4s around here. In Arizona, we get by with 2x2s, man. Yeah, you can pack a bunch of those.
If you're in timber, you can use a 6-inch tree also. You can notch it 4 sides on a tree, flatten blaze 4 sides of a tree, and then flag the tree.
Hello, Joshua. So, anyhow.
They like the 4x4 corners, though, in a rock stack or, marked out. Yeah,
something really noticeable. Shouldn't be a big problem. I have to locate the existing corner monuments, make sure they're up and everything, and then, I got GPS coordinates for everything. The ones where we're thinking of expanding where we're at around Montana Bee.
That shouldn't be too bad.
Wow, a motorcycle that looks like a grasshopper. That's weird.
Okay, Zioxio wants to know what's your favorite brand of gold pan. Now, we got two different guys that do two different things. So I'll tell you what my favorite pan is for microfine gold and hard rock samples, and that's the Stansport 10-inch black gold pan. It's very easy to handle. It holds just about the right amount for the size samples I like to do. And it has a couple riffles. That's about it. It's very simple. It has a sharp angle at the bottom of the corner instead of a vertical lip and then a slope. That does not work for what I'm doing. Now for the placer, we have a placer expert here.
And I use the Garrett pans, but I guess I haven't sat around testing different pans for the most part. I'll agree with you on, some of the metal pans even have a lot less degree of angle in them, and they're a lot easier. And even some of the small little blue ones, the kind of bright blue, I don't know who actually even makes them, but I use those for cleanup because gold against that blue really stands out well too. Mm-hmm. But I use Garrett pans most of the time for just my quick panning, if I'm looking for color. And, you can get the bigger pan and you can do quite a pile of gravel quick.
Yeah. And Vogus Prospecting has done some videos on Batea pans.
Yeah.
And I would love to try a Batea pan and see how it works with the microfine gold. It's obviously quite effective with placer gold because it's like the standard worldwide. And if that's the case, it's not because it sucks, it's because it works. Because in many other countries, they're not doing it for fun like we are. They're doing it because they got to feed their families.
Right. Yeah. The different motivation's different.
Yeah. If an American style gold pan was significantly better for what they were doing, they'd probably be using it by now. Hey, Secret, how's it going? I saw you comment on another video type somewhere. I forget what it was, but anyhow.
Hi, Secret.
But so I'd really like to do the Batea. I know that, say, Chris at Vogus there, he just loves the Batea for production panning. It goes really fast, he says. And
I've never tried one. I've seen them, and I've never tried one.
Yeah. Oh, you don't see them around.
Stick to what I've been able to, source when I need something and go with it.
Well, and also what you're doing with it, because the Batea seems to be a production pan.
Right.
You don't get as clean a reveal, I think, in many ways.
When you get down to like what you're doing with the real fine, and sometimes we are too. I mean, we're getting down there to where it's dust, but then I want a shallow pan that's got a nice reveal to it. Yeah. Same way, because I can just lick that little bit of lights out of there yet and not lose gold, and I can see it.
So you drove through Butte today, Secret, and you didn't tell us, huh? The Batea pans that I've seen are quite expensive compared to the standard plastic American style gold pans. Yeah. I presume this is Adam. They're usually steel, and I've seen them like typically in the $70 to $150 range, something like that.
A little higher end pan.
Yeah.
Maybe the mining fairies will drop one at your door if you lose.
Seems like it. Yeah, I figured, Secret. Okay, Gold Panner says metal ones are $75 in Canada. And what's that, about a 14-inch pan, Gold Panner? I presume so. And don't forget, like Chris shows you, but I mean, when you get one of those Batea pans, first you got to de-oil and blue it.
Yep, blue it up good. It'll really make a difference if you take a propane torch and blue it up good.
Yeah, put it over a fire or whatever, but you got to heat it up to drive off
any
the
of
oil
those metal
and
pans.
those metal
Actually,
pans.
if you can do that, it really helps.
Probably keeps them from rusting nearly
It
as
does.
badly, too.
It does too. Yeah, it kind of anneals the metal or whatever. It gives it a little bit of a coating that's easy to clean and not rust so quick.
Yeah, and it shows the gold a lot better.
Yep.
Shiny silver is not the best background.
Well, you
for
want to
shiny
make
gold.
sure you get rid of any oil in the pan that way to the metal. By heating it, you'll get rid of any oil. You can oil from your fingers.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Get that off of there.
I don't know, Zioxio. I don't. Aluminum is typically going to have an aluminum oxide coating, but none of the bateas I've seen are aluminum. They've all been steel.
Yeah, aluminum. If you're in a plaster and start picking mercury up or something, that could be a real issue.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got some amalgam, even it's just liquid enough or just soft enough, aluminum would be a nightmare.
Yeah. So Gold Panner says about almost 19 inches. That's
the bigger pan.
That's a big batea. Yeah.
75 bucks.
I know Chris at Vogus had a new one this time that he just got that was a much smaller one. I think it was from a Australian supplier, but it was more in the 12 to 14 inch range.
Here, Guthrie's, he's got like from 10-inch all the way up, I think, to 16 or 18.
In potatoes?
In regular metal pans. Yeah. He's got a full line of metal pans.
Yeah, the standard metal American style. Huh? Oh, yeah, Matt, I was right. I do have a hernia, so we're working on getting that taken care of. I'll be fine. No big deal. Although I suspect that the day I get the surgery, climbing up those stairs will be something less than pleasant. Yeah. He just had a video recently, Zioxio, that I don't recall him saying it was custom made. I think he said it was a new one from these guys. It was a new pan they just came out with, and he liked it because of the size and the steeper slope. They said it had the same depth, but it was significantly narrower, and so it had a significantly steeper slope. Yep. Well, we'll see how we get it all taken care of. Hopefully we can get it done fairly quickly, like next week. This week's taken care of. We got to go up to Butte.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You have to schedule your surgery between my bullshit there, Mr. Doctor. You know, I've got stuff to do. So I would like to try a batea. Does anyone have any experience with batea pans personally? I'd just love to see how they do on the microfine gold. I have a feeling it might work real well. And I was thinking that it might even be something that one could use as part of a continuous flow system.
You could, because you got a cone. It would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to introduce your slurry
kind of like a
peripheral thing,
around the outside.
Exactly, kind of like
it
that.
Could work out. Actually, it could work out really well.
I don't know. There was something
to play with.
Some guy had. I was watching. It was Amy and Andy, or Andy and Amy. I forget which. But anyhow, he probably says Amy and Andy, but she knows it's really, you know. Yeah. But anyhow, so it was called a rotopan, and it basically a classifier on a spindle over a little pan inside the bucket. So when you did your classification, the fines would go down and like a funnel and down into the center of that pan. So as you're doing it, the gold theoretically would stay in that pan, and a lot of the fines would overflow into the bucket.
There was an Australian that just had a video on YouTube, I think yesterday or today, that was playing with one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure it wasn't Vogus. Somebody just had a video because I kind of watched a little bit of it, just seeing what they were doing. Don't quote me on that if it was him, but it was one of the guys that.
Yeah, I've never tried those flat pans either, and it'd be worth trying. Have you ever seen those flat pans?
Actually, Dan Hurd uses one quite a bit lately, and then not interesting. It's just using it kind of like a rocker box.
Well, I think
for quick testing, I would think it would be kind of neat.
Dan had a whole series of videos of hands, didn't he?
I think so. A while back, you'd have to go back because he's done a lot of videos.
Ago, I
think you're right. He did a series on pans.
I think it was like 6 different pans that he did, and that's cool.
Looking back and checking out for.
Yeah, you could use a. Chris says flat pans don't work on real world material well. First goop of clay and it's all gone. Yeah.
Okay.
That would make sense. Why not just use a little center feed jig? Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Let's see. So that's the basic.
I use my blue bowl when I get down to the real fine stuff. I'll start scooping it into the blue bowl and just let it sit there and run while I can do something else.
Do you have
Just-
a gold cube too, or
No, I
just a
don't.
blue bowl?
No, just a blue bowl. When I get to that real fine, I'll use that. Just let it clear off, you know.
Okay.
And it'll get rid of most of the fines. You don't always get rid of all of it, but you can get it down.
Okay.
You know, when I'm doing concentrates, if I've got a little stuff that's mixed.
Okay. Well, we're now a little after 6, so we'll get in now.
Everybody here.
Well, we'll have most everyone here. We got 14. It's going to get busier as time goes on. We can't wait forever here. Yeah, the one thing about a blue bowl seems is you do have to classify it fairly tightly.
Well, you do, but when you get down to, you know, like when you're panning, you always get down to where you got some of those light sands yet in there. You know, it's not just gold in that pan. At that point, a lot of times I'll just clean it into the blue bowl. You're down to small enough classification that you can let it, especially with dish soap and that, you can let it clear and it'll clean that gold up pretty good.
Yeah.
You can take a snuffer bottle at that point, you know, shut it off and just suck up all the gold real quick.
Hey, Stephen B., how's it going? Zioxio likes to carry some jet dry
Yeah.
for his panning.
Yeah, I buy the big ones at Costco, the big jet.
What's your experience in placer? Does jet dry really make a difference in placer?
When you're cleaning up gold and black sand and that, you betcha. Anytime you can get the tension of that water loosened up, you can get that to divide, just like you do with your hard rock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can take the surface tension out of that water, because you can have gold fine enough, it'll float on water, just, you know, and you'll have that in plaster also.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've even seen wash plants that the guys actually had rigged up with Dawn dish soap, you know, a small amount of Dawn dish soap, just dripping into the trommel system, just to help it, just for, you know, it helps break up clay, especially.
Yeah. Hello, Goldstream. Hey, Lincoln.
Hi, everybody.
I agree, Zioxia. That's why I usually go with the jet dry with my panning for microfine gold to minimize the suds, because suds are not good.
Yeah.
They're just a pain in the butt. Let's see. Okay, so anyhow, what Jim's going to talk about today, we've done the preliminary exploration, we've done the evaluation, and now the idea is to actually put a mine into operation now. You've got to basically the permitting and the planning.
Well, yeah,
Right?
we're gonna, I think at some point we'll do a series if people are interested on actual mine planning, because that can get fairly technical. Tonight, basically, I was gonna go into what we do in Montana here for permitting and a couple different ways, depending on, you know, this, what you're looking at or what you're actually doing out in the field, you know, that you can take that. Because the mine planning really does play into permitting. And that's why I think if we did that as a separate subject, I hate to kind of jump around, but I thought I would go into permitting and, you know, that part of it here in Montana on BLM and that in state lands. And maybe we can do some comparisons with some other guys on there. I know I kind of reached out to Goldstream about that. And kind of to hear from, you know, British Columbia, Canada, what you guys are up against as far as permitting, or Australia. I'd be interested, you know. Go ahead.
Lincoln has a question. Has anyone used clay begon? Have you ever?
I've heard of it.
anything?
I've never actually used it.
You really haven't had a big problem with clay, so you didn't need
on
to.
the last plasters we were on, we didn't have a huge problem, so it was not. You can also, historically, the old guys used salt. They go to the grain elevator and buy salt and dump salt in with the clay, and I guess salt itself will break the clay, help break it apart, especially going through a log washer or a trommel. So, I mean, I think,
Pretty sure the EPA wouldn't like that
Well,
nowadays, though.
yeah, right. You got to be careful adding things to a system. But
Yeah.
if you were doing it in an enclosed system, for cleanups or something, there is other ways to deal with some of those issues. All right. Well, I guess I'll just start. In Montana, you basically contact the Department of Environmental, and you've got two choices. You can file for an exploration license, which is $100 with a $25 annual assessment. That will allow you multiple sites throughout the whole state of Montana, and you can move up to 10,000 tons of material in your testing and exploration. And that applies to hard rock as well as placer. So in a lot of cases, that's the way we go. And then you've got a reclamation bond for each of those sites, depending on how much, vegetation you're going to destroy, or how, what the extent of your digging is going to be. So your reclamation bond through them is basically, they figure out what they want to charge you on that bond. And it is pretty much limited at $10,000 unless you go into, a big program for your mine planning. The second one is what they call a small miners exclusion. It's a statement that you do with Department of Environmental here in Montana. You're limited to 2 sites that have to be more than a mile apart. And they can bond that based on the holes you're going to dig. So if you're just going to dig 5 test holes, the bonding is per hole, and you can get it minimized from the $10,000 bonding. You can do up to 5 acres of disturbance under a small miners exclusion. So you can actually have a considerable amount of land stripped and opened up, and piles and moving dirt around. And most guys that are mining try to fall into that 5 acres. I know a lot of times what we've done is try to do 1 acre at a time. That way we're doing concurrent reclamation, and there's never, you avoid those problems as long as you can keep, doing reclamation at the same point as you're digging, opening a drainage up. So if you can keep it under that 5 acres, ideally down to 2 acres or something for disturbance at any given time, they're a lot nicer about the bonding.
Now, are you saying that you could have a continuous 2 acres disturbed where you just keep working it up,
right,
and
you reseed an acre back here, and maybe you're on the 3rd or 4th acre up there,
and that still falls into the small minor?
You can have 5 acres of actual disturbance. So under the small miners, you could be a pretty big operation, actually.
I mean, could you theoretically overall disturb 100 acres by the end of the project? But just
as long as you are permitting, right? As long as you are literally just permitting 5 acres at a time, yeah, you could just keep going and going and going.
Well, that might be the way to do it.
Well, it is, because if you go into big mine planning, I figured I'd get to that at the end more so. But if you get into that, an operational permit includes 100 acres of disturbed ground. And when you get to an operational permit, the application fee is only $25, but it will take you a minimum of 1 year to permit it. And that's if everything goes good. My guess, in most of the things I've seen, you're probably talking 2 years just to get the permitting because of the amount of disturbance that you want to do. It's more of really a major permitting project for a big mine. And it's a 1 year process. So they look at what you did for the first year, and then they adjust your bond accordingly year after year. I know of one operation over here, their bonding prices were up to $250,000 a year in bonding. So that's taken it to a real big concept there.
Now, the $250,000, can you get a bond from someone else?
Yeah, you could go through an insurance company or a bank, a non-revocable letter of credit for 10% of the value of the bond.
Okay.
So a letter of credit for 10% of the value of the bond.
Okay.
So, like that $10,000 bond, basically you're looking at $1,000 if you went through an insurance company, plus whatever fee they want to tack on there. Or a non-revocable letter of credit for $10,000 from the bank.
Okay.
You have to post, or you can post it in cash. They'll escrow the money to an account. And once the reclamation is done and the grass and trees are growing back, which may take 2 years, they will give you your money back if everything meets, the requirements.
Now, Secret, I believe basically all Western states, you're going to need to have some kind of reclamation bond. Certainly on all federal land, you will. And I imagine most of the state lands, you're going to run into a similar situation.
Montana has a separate entity for state land management, but it's very similar to BLM and Forest Service in the requirements as far as a mining plan. I guess let's start with BLM because we'll go through each of these a little bit here, depending on questions.
Just a second. Zioxia wants to know, do you need a permit for prospecting if you're digging with hand tools?
If you're on Forest Service or BLM or state land, you do have to file a notice of intent so they know why you're out there. If you're digging with hand tools, you do not need a plan of operations at that point. They'll try to force you into one because a plan of operations is a contract between you and BLM or Forest Service. But as long as you're doing it as a prospector, notice of operation, your notice of intent, so they know that it's you digging those holes and why you're out there, is really all that's required under the mining law on that. At this point,
well,
they'll try to get you into a plan of operation. They'll keep telling you got to have a plan of operations, and it's like, no, I don't. I'm not mining. I'm exploring. I'm prospecting.
Well, what if now that would be if you're on your own claim. Suppose if you're just out on BLM land looking.
Well, even there, you're supposed to file a notice of intent so that BLM knows who's out there.
Well, let's see. I'm going to be.
I agree. I mean, this is some great ground. But if they catch you out there and you're digging, honestly, and you don't have a notice of intent that it's you that's doing this, they can fine you.
Huh.
Yeah, you might be out there wandering. Metal detecting, they're probably not going to bother you. But if the minute you're starting to pan or play, and really looking at some gold and maybe even recovering a little bit just because you're out there, finding some, if you don't have that notice of intent, actually, you're kind of in a gray zone.
So if you were just out along the Missouri River,
here's part of the reason for that is, and I'll kind of get into that later, but part of the reason for that is they want you to go to BLM or whoever, find out who has claims in that area so that you're not poaching gold on somebody's claim or jumping claims or trespassing on a patented piece. Maybe that's not marked well.
Yeah.
Because some mines up in there, even some hard rock mines, they are privately owned. And if you don't look at the map, you don't know that. You drive in there, you can play around. Nobody's there. Nobody's been there for 30 years. But it's still a private piece of land. And by doing a notice of intent, the ranger, his job really is to say, wait a minute, okay, there's this claim, this claim, this claim. Those are already existing claims. You can't go on those,
Mm-hmm.
So it's good for the miners like us that have claims also, that everybody goes in and asks those questions. It protects us also.
Huh.
I'll let you go through some questions there.
I'm just checking that. There's so many abandoned patent claims way up in the mountains in Montana. Yeah, probably.
Oh yeah. There's patented claims up in the mountains. Yeah. My camper is sitting on one claim up there that you'd never know it. It looks like Forest Service, but it's actually a private patented claim that's been there for years.
Yeah.
And I know above the other one we were working on last summer, there's 2 patented claims above that. You'd never know it by driving up there,
Mm-hmm.
but they're privately owned land.
The one we went up to last summer there?
No, not that one. That one's
Okay.
just a claim, one of my claims.
Okay.
If we start with BLM, it's not a notice of intent isn't a permit. It's just telling them you're filing paperwork basically, and it's just really easy to do at BLM office or send it in. It's just your intent. Why are you there? See, because as a miner, you have mining rights. So that when they say, well, you drove your truck off that road and you came over here, your 4-wheeler, you can say, yeah, I'm a miner. And that does hold some value. It's a valid claim that you have access to claims and to go prospecting. You're not a visitor. See, they want to throw the visitor rules at you. Don't let them do that. As a miner, you've got rights and things that you get, they have to follow too. They don't like it, but they do.
Well, let's hope they follow
So
it.
BLM, you've got a notice of intent. You're supposed to file that 15 days before you go running around. And there's really no authorization on that. Your notice of intent just says, hey, I'm going to be up there running around and looking, I'm prospecting, and that's why I'm here. Then if you get to a plan of operations, basically, when you do a plan of operations, you really want to think thoroughly about what it is you want to do, how you want to do it, and plan it very, very carefully. And sometimes even consulting a mining engineer is not a bad idea in case you miss something. But if you do a plan of operations, they want maps of how do you get to that site, a regional map of the site and existing claims shown on that map, so that you can show that you're on your own claim and not jumping somebody else's. They want to know where you're going to camp, where are you going to be staying while you're there working on your claim. They want to know what you're going to do for sanitation, a garbage can, an outhouse. Where is it going to be located? When you do a plan of operations, it's got to be so thorough, because you can't go back in and change. You can go back in and change it, but if you do that, they're going to say, okay, suspend operations until we give you the authorization, which might be next year, because they love to, government loves to just drag it out. So when you file a plan of operations, you want to make sure that you have every detail covered. Where your settling pond is going to be, what you're going to be digging, where you're going to put your overburden or your black dirt, your organics, for doing the reclamation. They want a full reclamation plan about what you're going to do. It gets very thorough. I mean, if you can consult another miner about what they've done, that's great. They will, BLM and Forest Service will work with you on it also. But before you put that plan into place and say, okay, there's my plan, you definitely want to have somebody look it over and make sure that you've crossed all the T's.
Okay, we got a couple questions here. Brandon says, I've been researching the issue of private landowners who attempt to prevent access. Any input on that?
In Montana, there is some laws as far as mineral rights that, even if you own mineral rights under somebody's private surface rights, they can't stop you from going there. It's a legal battle, and it's actually a civil battle. Unfortunately, BLM or Forest Service won't be in your court on that unless, if on a patent, a lot of times, if there was a road through the patent going farther up the drainage or something, Forest Service or BLM reserved rights for passage. And sometimes you have to go have them do some research too, because there's a lot of places where there is a legal access through somebody's private property, and they just do not, nobody wants you to know that.
Well, suppose that there is a legal access, but you show up and the private property owner says, no, you can't cross. How do you deal with that situation right then?
Well, if there is a legal easement there, like Forest Service or something, they have to let you put your own lock on the gate or whatever, and you have access. They cannot stop you. The state law says they cannot stop you.
I understand that,
Well,
but
you call the sheriff and say, hey, I have the legal right to go through here.
that's what I was getting.
And the landowner's not going to like it because they love to do that. You know, they want to call everything theirs and they only own that acre, you know.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, you know, it could lead to a civil court case if you need access to your claim.
Okay, so basically, if they're getting in your face, instead of, you know, threatening them or anything, just call the sheriff.
Yeah,
And the
have
sheriff
the sheriff
will deal
come
with
up and there's a legal access here and they need to open that up.
Make sure you got your paperwork in order so
Yeah.
the sheriff can look at it. Now.
Well, definitely. I mean, you go to Forest Service or BLM and they'll look for an access. If there's one that exists, they'll find it. Even if it was 50 years ago that they kept that little right,
Okay.
they'll find it.
Okay. Then let's see. Can you dig an outhouse, or do you have to have a porta potty?
No, you have to use a porta potty and you have to show that you're having it dumped or hauled away.
Okay.
You know, where you're dumping, they have to keep a receipt for that. Like I say, your campsite has to be designated. Your mining site has to be designated. You know, it gets very, very technical when you get into a plan of operations. And if it's done right, your plan of operations will fly right through their radar. I mean, they'll go, yep, oh, it looks good. It's well planned. We like how you planned it, and it's not an issue. What happens is a lot of people submit a half a plan. Well, we just want to dig right here. Well, that's not a plan. You know, the reclamation plan, they want to see your water management plan, where your pipeline's going to be or your water hoses. You know, where are you going to stockpile the soils? Where are you going to stockpile the logs if you have to take some trees out? That plan has to be very, very detailed.
Okay. Now, Stephen B says, basically, are these plans of operations that they have on file, are those something you can get through Freedom of Information Act requests?
Yeah, you can go into that, and you can also pull up a blank copy of a plan of operations at the Department of Agriculture, Forest Service, mining, and you can kind of be able to go through. And there's more to it than just what's on there's a lot of times. And when you get to the back where it's like EPA and that, some of that you don't need to worry about unless you're doing the 100-acre one or something where it gets. But they'll come out, and like I'm working on a permit right now on my copper project, but they've came out already. Soil and water from the county and the county commissioners were out. Everybody's looked at it and went, yeah, it looks good. The plan is good. But they'll do historical, archaeological on the site. Somebody has to come out, walk the whole site and look in case there's an Indian mound or something. I don't know what they're looking for exactly. Sometimes it's Chinese workings or something. You know, an existing old cabin they don't want you to destroy or something like that. Something historical. Or if in the case you're going to destroy it, they'll take pictures, they'll mark it, they'll make evidence of it, and that way it'll get into a historical file at the Historical Society or something, that it doesn't get lost from history. But then they'll do a biological, they'll look at the area for the, you know, plant species, tree species. They'll also do wildlife. Like right now on this one, we're waiting for our permit for grizzly bears because we're in a grizzly bear management area. So that's the last one right now. We're waiting for the report from the bear guys. But it gets thorough. They'll do fisheries. They'll check water quality, turbidity, and everything below you. You have to really make sure when you file that plan of operations, you've thought out every little hula hoop they're going to throw.
Now, who pays for all of these studies?
And sometimes you do.
Okay. And how much do they cost in general?
I did one down in southern Montana here a while back that we permitted to do some exploration. Everything went through and we basically had the permit and ready to sign in the money for the bond. And they came back and said, wait a minute, there's some sage grouse up there.
I can fix that.
Well, that's what I said. Well, hunting opens in a couple weeks. We can take care of that problem. They didn't think that was so funny. But we ended up having to we hired a biologist of our own.
Okay.
To counter whatever crap they came back with.
Yeah.
And we finally came up with Yeah, okay, that's winter range, right? So we went ahead with our bond and getting a permit ready and everything, and they come back and say, well, yeah, but you can't start till the end of July. And it's like, well, why? Well, because of this sage grouse thing. And I'm like, well, you guys just determined it was winter range. What the hell does the end of July have to do with that? Well, and you just shake your head and go, is there any reality left in the world?
No.
After they determined it was winter range, so it had nothing to do with what we're, and this area has been consistently mined. Somebody's been on these properties mining with, small trommels and rigs for the last, 45 years. So actually what we were going to do is just continue on with what's already been happening there. And it was just hurdle after hurdle, but we did finally get it pushed through.
Okay. Hi, Terry. Smoking wants to know, do you have to replant natural plants back in after the surface is restored?
Forest Service has their own seed mix that they require you to use,
Okay.
Which is available at some of the other
Feed stores?
Feed stores that mix for Forest Service for, fire, after fires and stuff. They have a mix that they prefer that you use. And like what I did on some of my stuff is if I was in an area where I had some really nice willow brush or something, I would take the excavator and scoop up a bunch of that. And I'd go over and I actually had a little nursery going in an area of my claim that I would move some of those small little, 8-inch high pine trees and some of the willow trees and stuff. And I had my own nursery going so that when I went back to do reclamation, I could just move a lot of that stuff right back in. And even if it dies, it's still vegetative cover. And some of it'll regrow, especially willows. If they got water, they'll start regrowing from the root.
Okay. Zeoxia wants to know any favorite mining supply stores in Montana.
There's one right out of Helen here, Bud's out here, the prospector shop,
Yeah,
and he handles quite a bit of stuff. He's got miner's moss and all different widths and gold pans and magnets and all the little tools you need.
Any other stores?
Right around here, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think Missoula might have a prospector shop of some kind.
Zeoxio's in Butte, so.
Well, I actually in Butte, Zeoxio, as far as some gold pans and some of that, you can go down to Pioneer Equipment. They're down by the interstate, just off the interstate. They're on, I think it's Montana. Pioneer Equipment, anyway, they have some gold pans in that. They're a company that has worked with the mining business in Butte for generations, and they're great people, privately owned, really nice people down there.
Yeah, if you just need basic stuff, Sportsman's Warehouse has some pans and classifiers and stuff.
Even Walmart in Butte might have gold pans, and that stuff.
Okay. Now, Lincoln Stovall says, I've used half pipe out farms. It's like conveyor belting, hoe cutting, trench, shallow, lay it in the ditch. Can you do that type of control, or do they have regs on what you can use? I'm not sure what you're controlling with that, Lincoln. I'm just confused.
Sounds like water.
I would think it's water coming off
That
your
sounds like
wash
farm
plant or
irrigation
something.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can give us a little more detail.
And,
Yeah, that must be the one he's talking about. Zeoxia says there's some mining store in Butte, but I haven't been there. Seems like they're for big professional operations.
well, they have other stuff too. It's worth a walk through their store, I'll tell you that.
Okay, so
That Pioneer Equipment's a neat store.
Pioneer Equipment, Zeoxio.
I'd like to see that.
Well, maybe we can go a little early on Thursday. We'll see.
As far as Goldstream asked about archaeological study, for a small miner that here, usually Forest Service will bring in their own archaeologist or the Historical Society, somebody, and that won't necessarily cost you. I mean, occasionally they'll try to back charge you, $1,000 or $1,500, depending on if it gets, if it's something that gets detailed, you may end up having to pay for part of it anyway. or for a student to write the report. Most of the time they'll handle that, but you have to wait to go through all of those steps. So once you've once you've found a mining claim that you're interested in mining and plan this all out, your test holes, and go beyond exploration, actually going to go to mining, that plan of operations becomes fairly critical. Well, that's one thing we're partly lucky on, is some of this area they've done archaeological studies for the Forest Service, and they've done some biological because of the cattle grazers in the mountains here. So in a lot of cases, it's really a non-event, but they still have to write a report because it has to do, with what you're doing. What kind of money are you talking to hire an archaeologist, Goldstream? Yep, erosion control. You've got your settling ponds, your water, where you're pulling water from, where your water lines are going. It's very, very thorough when you file that plan. Excuse me. Let's see, about 1,200. Yeah. That's probably pretty close to here, because on that biologist cost us $1,500 for the sage grouse deal, and I know from other guys that I've worked with too that somewhere around $1,200-1,500 is probably a reality if they want to come back and try to charge some of that time for coming out there.
So what is it? Just they're out there one day basically. And
yeah, they get out of the office and you get to pay for it.
Like a nice gig.
They'll do, historic workings, the mine plan. Oh, on your plan of operations, you have to list all the equipment you're going to use too. So that's why it becomes critical in your mine plan to literally, you got to think out every detail. I mean, you're going to have a trommel, you're going to have pumps, you're going to have an elevator or something moving rock away. You're going to have a dozer, an excavator, whatever equipment that's going to be on that site literally has to be on that plan of operations. If you bring in another piece of equipment because it's going to make your life easier, you've just violated your plan of operation to them. And they could get that critical. So when you write that mine plan, it really is thorough.
So you might actually throw extra stuff on there that you may or may not
right.
have.
Yeah. If you think you're going to need it, it's got to be on the mine plan. It's got to be on your plan of operations, even if you don't bring it in there.
Yeah. Even if it's just, so all contingencies should be covered in the plan initially.
Exactly.
No matter how bad it goes.
Exactly.
It's covered.
Right. And that's where, like I say, if you have to consult a mine engineer or somebody for the concept of your tailings ponds and your reclamation piles as to where should we stack this stuff so we only move it once, which is a big cost savings. The more times you move dirt, the more expensive it gets. So you really want to plan out how you're going to make your cuts up the drainage or whatever, and where you're going to put everything while you're mining it, and then how you're going to put it all back. Your erosion control, mitigating any water issues, like, turbidity and water downstream. It's got to be very thorough.
Now, it also sounds to me like, from what you've been describing, that you would generally want a plant that's relatively easy to move. So as you process material, you can throw the stuff behind you, move the plant forward,
and reclaim,
and then reclaim behind you.
Yep.
While you're
ideally, if you can do concurrent reclamation with the excavations you're doing, which if you're making just one cut up the drainage, that's your opening pass that you're making. If you have a place for your soils, you have a place for your overburden, some of the dirt and rock that you're not taking gold out of. And then, slide your wash plan up and use the beginning of that hole literally to start to backfill from your wash plan. And then maybe a pond below that, just to make sure that you're not going to send mud or, silt farther.
Okay.
But if you can do your reclamation concurrent all the way up, literally, we were running 150 yards a day in that my one plant up there. And so we were moving a fair amount of material ahead of us. And we were trying to contain the whole environment to less than 2 acres at any one time that we had disturbed. And it actually worked out fairly well. And we had a lot of water to deal with. We had a lot of groundwater.
Okay.
But it's still, we made it work. And we ended up with a couple of ponds behind us in order to get rid of the silt and turbidity, in our drain water. But it worked.
Now, Goldstream says that where he's at, which I think is probably Australia, we also need emergency plans, medical evacuation, first aid, communications, etc.
That all falls under MSHA here, Mine Safety and Health Administration. That's another fun bunch to deal with.
Is that a separate permit?
There is no permit, actually. There's an inspection from them.
Okay.
And your miners have to be trained in safety and first aid and a plan of who to call first. And if there is a landing pad close for a helicopter, you have to have a backboard. If you've got ponds, you have to have life jackets.
Yeah.
You have to have hard hats.
Even if the ponds are 3 feet deep.
Yeah. Oh, even if they're an inch deep, they're a pond.
Yeah.
And if you've got a walkway across the creek, it's got to have handrails on both sides. You can't have just one handrail or run across a plank, even though it's 6 inches deep. If it goes across even your down, below your sluice box, if you got a plank laying across there, it's got to have handrails on it if somebody would walk on it.
Well, you brought up a question. If you're working on your own claim or somebody else's claim or whatever,
You're still under MSHA.
and
If you're a miner, and even if you're actually using a high banker, honest to God, the way the federal law reads, you're under MSHA.
well,
Now, if you're doing what you're doing, like going into a hard rock mine as exploring,
yeah.
exploration is not under MSHA.
Okay.
So even if that's why I use my exploration license a lot on my test holes areas and stuff, because I'm not under mine safety if I'm doing test holes and running material for tests. That's the out. The minute you go to a full plan of operations with like the small miners exclusion, they basically notify MSHA that you're mining.
Okay.
And then you've got MSHA, and that could be, depending on how many guys you've got working, by the time you do the testing, you could pretty much figure $500 per person just to get your MSHA certificate and go through the classes. And there is classes you have to go through. And then once you've established that, then there's reports. You have to do equipment safety checks every day. Well, you've worked with MSHA.
Yeah.
You end up doing equipment safety checks every day, brakes and hydraulics, and you got to look so you got a daily inspection form you have to keep on site. All your fuel and oils and all that type of stuff has to be in a specific area, and it all has to be labeled as to exactly what's in that bottle. MSHA unto itself is a whole bunch of crazy.
Yeah. Patrick Jones says, do you work in Montana specifically for permitting reasons? Have you mined in other states?
I have not. I came out here to Montana 10 years ago from the gravel industry and decided I wanted to learn about gold mining and go gold mining. That was back after the housing crash and all that economics. And I thought, I really want to do something where I don't have to deal with a lot of people. Well, little did I know, I'm back to dealing with government and crazy. That was what I was trying to get away from. But Montana is pretty pro mining for the most part. A lot of people, like in this area, their grandparents or their uncles, somebody mined. So there's a lot of opportunity, and they call this the Golden Triangle right here. About 100 miles, 150 miles north and south, and 100 miles wide right here, has some of the neatest mineralization in the world right here.
Okay. Goldstream says in Australia they need to have someone with a mine supervisor.
He's in Canada.
Canada?
He's in British Columbia.
Oh, he said Aborigines.
Well, yeah, well.
I thought that was First Nations.
First Nations people. Well, same difference, isn't it?
I'm so confused.
Sorry, we're not trying to offend anybody.
We need to have someone with a mine supervisor certificate on site at all times. So that means you have to have two, because when he takes a day off, everyone would have to take a day off.
Well, see here, actually here, once you have your MSHA certificate, each person, you're good.
Okay.
You know, especially if it's just a 2 or a 3-man operation. They're really, for the most part, they may come up, check you out, look your equipment over, make sure the safety guards are on and all that. And you may not see them for 2 years again, as long as you don't have an incident, you know, where somebody gets hurt or, you know, a loader rolls over or something. Then it turns into a nightmare.
Goldstream calls it Canada. Stephen B says we have several different titles for different indigenous groups up here in Canada. Well, that makes sense because
so do we.
Why should we actually have, you know?
So do we.
Let's see,
It's like,
Aboriginals,
what are they talking about?
Métis, that's probably French. First Peoples, First Nations, etc.
Yeah.
The latest terminology is Aboriginal, even here, huh? Well, you know, the funny thing is, a long time ago, I forget who it was. He was the guy that got caught for the Watergate break-in. He's a talk radio host and everything. He says, you know, if they ask you what your
on for just a minute there.
what your ethnic group is, say Native American. You were born here. You know?
Well, that's true.
Yeah, because
I mean, they were immigrants here too. They came from somewhere.
Yeah, no, but I mean, no, literally, you were a Native American.
I am. I was born here.
Yeah, exactly.
My relatives have been here since the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Where we got next?
Let's see the plan of operations. Yeah, U.S. Department of Agriculture, Forest Service. There's a PDF you can download that basically gives you a sample plan of operations to make sure that, you know, you can double check your thoughts and plans. And let's see, we did camping area, porta potty.
I don't think we did camping area.
Well, your camping area is got to be on that plan of operate, where you're staying, what, you know, where you're coming in and out, your ingress and egress, what road you use and coming in and out with equipment, trash control, safety, which we talked about.
I guess with bears, you have to have a plan to deal with bears.
You got to have mitigation plans for everything that you can possibly think that could go wrong. Your safety, fire, because you're in the forest. You have to have a plan for fire, you know, safety and evacuation, your reclamation ponds, and what you would do if, you know, you started getting your retention pond wasn't holding or something.
Huh?
Right. How are you going to mitigate? Or oil on the ground, you blow a big hydraulic hose and dump, you know, 10 gallons of
That would
hydraulic
never
fluid.
happen.
Never happened for me. I can tell you that. But they want to know that you have thought thoroughly through your mitigation. What could happen, or what do we foresee happening as we go through and mine this out?
It was funny in Arizona. They tried to enact the law, and the environmentalists were going crazy. And the law was very simple. If you had an environmental event, you know, a spill or something like that, as long as you reported it immediately and did your best to mitigate the effects,
Right.
you could get no fines. Okay?
Not anymore.
And then the
Not
environment
here.
said, oh, well, that's not good enough.
Yeah,
And it's
not
like,
anymore.
okay, so now you're encouraging people to shovel and shut up.
Oh yeah.
Blew a hydraulic line.
Yep.
Okay, scrape it up, throw it in the
Yeah,
waste
get the
dump.
payloader quick.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And you know, part of the reason I bring that plan of operations is because if you don't think it out and you get into mid-season and you have to make a change somehow,
You're screwed.
you're screwed. They're going to shut you down right there. And if you got bills to pay like we do every day, if they shut you down for the remainder of the season until they can authorize next spring in April, you know, that you could go ahead again, you're screwed. It's going to financially ruin you. So you definitely want a plan.
Now, Kevin, I have to admit, that's a pretty funny thought. And it would be so tempting to put on your plan of operations
Bigfoot?
your
no,
your
we
Bigfoot
yeah.
mitigation plan.
I've been up there in the woods for many, many years, and I haven't seen him yet. I've seen a lot of grizzly bears.
But you
and
never
stuff.
know.
You don't
You have to
know.
plan for all
Oh, I'm
contingencies.
positive. I'm not saying
If you see a Bigfoot, what is the procedure?
Well, that's M. Shaw came up to a friend of mine's
Procedure is
operation,
pull out
and
video camera.
all of his guys had AR-15s in their equipment, and they were carrying their AR-15s around and everything. And M. Shaw was trying to tell them they couldn't do that. They couldn't have guns and weapons on the mine site. That's a hazard. And he's like, okay. Well, you guys want to walk up to that pit there where we're digging up there around the corner? He said, we've had a mountain lion that's been hanging around right up there. He's there, and then suddenly they were okay with the guns. But I mean, we're in America. You have a right to have one and carry it, especially here. But
over there, I've worked in Southern California at one of the mines, and we had a desert tortoise plant, of course. Yeah. Now, one of the funny things was we had this fence that went for miles along the main road, and like every 100 yards there's a sign that says tortoises are protected, be aware. It's like
you can't get through the fence.
Well, no, it's just those signs are going to do what good?
I don't know.
You're driving 60 miles an hour,
right? If by the time you hit one, you're done.
If there is if you can affect a tortoise, it's going to be a bad thing. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, Randy, we carry the lead.
Yeah, I don't know if
bear sprays. They say here that just adds more flavor to you when they're chewing you up.
I don't know if you know this, Jim. Desert tortoises have a high gear.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I found this out one day. I was leveling pad. It was basically just going to be, I don't know if it was an ore stockpile or just a waste dump or whatever, but my job was to go out there and turn the lumpy desert into a flat pad with a D9.
Yep.
And so, I'm just cutting the tops and laying it in the valleys and stuff. And so I just finished tailing out a roll, looked behind me, and there was a very, very dusty desert tortoise heading north at a high rate of speed. I caught him up in the roll and just laid him out beneath the blade. Didn't hurt him at all. I went and got him, checked him. He was fine. Took him out to
take him to safety.
So I took him away from the work area and put him across the fence, which was to the bombing range. But luckily, the live bombs would be on the other side of the mountain. So I figured he was safe. But they keep creating kinds of crazy that you can't. It just makes you crazy. Yeah, I mean, because bureaucrats seem to think that if you have enough rules, everyone will be perfectly safe. Well, that's M. Shaw too. I was on my mine site by myself, mining by myself, feeding my wash plant, digging, doing everything for 2 seasons by myself. No help, nobody. M. Shaw's up there telling me I got to have a backboard and I need this. And I'm looking at him. Like, okay, if I fall down and get hurt, who's going to strap me to the backboard and then who's going to carry me out? I mean, it's like if I'm not safe myself, taking care of my own safety, I'm screwed. Yeah, there's nobody coming. And a cell phone didn't work where we were at, so there was no call for help either. We did eventually put a booster up there and did have cell service. But, I mean, literally, they're telling me I got to follow these rules, and it's like, it's impossible. You can't. Smoking Joe says, up here you have to wear little bear bells on your shoes so they can hear you coming and carry pepper spray. Then watch out for bear scat. You can tell the bear scat because it smells like pepper and has a little bit. That's right. Yeah, it just adds flavor when they're eating you. That's all. I'll tell you, if you turn into the wind and shoot that bear spray off, you better be ready because you're going to be wearing as much of it as anything else is. Zeoxio, if you're working by yourself nowadays, you could use a G-perp, radio. Yeah, you could put a locator button on a safety locator. Yeah, and that's all good. I mean, safety. All of us want to go home at night or go, be able to go see the kids or whatever. You don't want to get hurt and you don't want to die up there. But there's common sense and being able to be responsible for yourself. You don't jump out of the excavator and run down the track. You climb up carefully out of it
and walk over. And if the wash plant blows up before you get there, oh well. You know, it isn't worth tripping over a 1-foot boulder and breaking your arm and your ankle and then having to drive yourself out of that environment.
Yeah. Another thing, Zioxio, I've heard is the 12 gauge slug works good on
A
bears
12
too.
gauge slug is very effective. You get 500 grains of lead coming out really fast is really effective on a bear.
Yeah, Goldstream, the G-Perb emergency transmitters work really well too. Good, and all it does is
they're satellite linked too, so they'll work just about anywhere.
you just push the button, and in 10 minutes, the people know that
EMS,
this person is calling for help at this spot. Yeah. Now, according to, I had a friend of mine who was in the Civil Air Patrol, and he said that, most aircraft nowadays have G-Perbs, and they're also designed to be automatic. In case they get more than 3 Gs, they automatically start transmitting.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so they had some locations that if a G-Perb comes off from this location, it's like, yeah, Ryan Airfield? Yeah, did you guys have a guy just make a hard landing there? Yeah. Okay, what's his number? Yeah, okay, thank you. Cancel.
Yeah. No, yeah, shotgun Zioxio with buckshot alternated with slugs is very effective. And it's the reason I do that with a lot of mine up there is it works for two-legged predators too. When you're out up on a site like we were, where you're pulling gold, especially when I worked by myself. I had my dog. I had a blue heeler that's with me, but you always are looking over your shoulder, making sure somebody else isn't around, because you're a target, or you very well could be one with the way the world's gone.
Well, another thing too, if you were in bear country by yourself and you needed something you can carry on a hip, they make something called the Raging Judge.
Yeah.
Have you heard of it?
410 pistols.
It's a 410 pistol.
Or a 45 Colt.
Ah, no, that's the Judge.
Okay.
The Raging Judge is 454 Casull.
Oh, well, that'd be effective.
That's twice as powerful.
That's a lot of power.
Yeah,
that's a lot of power real fast.
It's a little big,
well,
but
we won't get into guns too much.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
be in
sorry.
trouble. But yeah, no, we're working in an environment with bears and two-legged predators, maybe too. You never know. You're back on these remote places that people do have access to, and it makes you wonder. Especially when you're actually getting some gold.
Okay, what's a bear banger? I presume it's some kind
It's
of.
a rod. They make a rod with I think it's a shotgun shell in it.
Really?
I think like a slug in it.
Okay.
A bang stick. But when you're working at something and not paying attention to that's why the dog was essential, because my dog knows what a bear is and does not like bears. So if a bear got within a couple hundred yards, if she winded it, she'd come right to the excavator and tell me there's a bear.
Mm-hmm.
So she was my first sacrificial thing before me.
I don't know, Zioxio. I got a 44 Magnum and I don't have a problem. You can try it sometime. It's Eva's shot it.
44 is a nice shooting gun.
Yeah, it's not that bad. You're not going to hold it on target when you pull the trigger. It will recoil.
Yeah, it'll jump. It'll jump.
You just bring it back down.
Not bad.
Tell them the whole story, Bear. Tell them about how you put your hand over my forehead like this when I shot it, so I wouldn't break my nose.
Yeah, well, I really don't like these videos where you see people
are a pilot. Thank you. I love that.
Give somebody, a gun that they don't know how to handle and don't want to.
No, you want to.
You'll see a girl, shooting a 12 gauge like this, and you go, okay, I know what's going to happen here. So with Eva, I just put my hand over by her forehead there, so that when it recoiled,
right.
If she wasn't holding it enough,
understand what it's
slap my hand.
Whatever you're using for protection, you want to go out and practice a little with it, so you're confident in just being able to flip off a safety or whatever and use it.
Yeah,
effective. Make it effective.
I don't know, Zioxio. I would agree that 4 times more powerful than a 44, 3 times. I'd like to try it before I know what.
Yeah, if you're hiking around, it's different than when you're on working on a mine. But my neighbor one day, honest to God, had his sawmill running, and he's got a portable sawmill. He owns a patent up beyond where we were mining. But he had his 3 black labs laying there. They were laying under the truck in the shade where it was cool, sleeping. He's running the sawmill, and a black bear walked up and took the wallet right out of his back pocket. And
So much for having a good.
yeah, so much for the dogs. And he said it scared the light. He grabbed for his 44, which he always has on his leg. And he said it startled me so bad because black bear had its nose right up the back of my pants. And he said, the engines are running on the sawmill. And the bear was just curious more than anything. Thank God it didn't do any damage, but
yeah.
It will light you up. I mean, your heart will jump a few beats.
Yeah. No, that would be exciting.
I had a grizzly bear in camp there that was there for 3 days. It kept coming back in around the equipment, and it was big. And the dog absolutely hated it. And I got to where I was nervous. I figured on the 4th day we were going to have a come to Jesus meeting, and the bear was gone. And then we did catch it on a trail cam up out of camp, later that week when we looked. But that grizzly bear was lurking around all our equipment and a couple of our buildings and trailers we had parked and stuff every day for 3 days. And you're looking around like, do you see anything before you even walk away from a piece of equipment? It scares you because you don't want to get eaten.
Yeah, moose can be pretty dangerous too.
They're more curious as far as equipment running though than, as long as you don't corner them or they have a young one.
Well, or if it's rutting season, don't honk your horn.
Well, yeah, don't get in their way.
Yeah, I believe I told them about my
But it was kind of fun. I mean, I had deer where they'd come in, and I think they were trying to get away from the wolves, but the deer herd would come in the afternoon, and they'd lay right next to where we had the excavator running. There'd be 7 or 10 deer every day laying there watching us, and we're throwing all them big rocks and the wash plants banging away, and you'd think that they would hate that sound, but they didn't. They were there every day. All summer long, they'd come and they'd lay by our equipment in the yard. And my dog leaves deer alone. She knows to just leave the deer alone. And it was like pets. You could walk down the driveway and pass, you'd have your cup of coffee or whatever, and you'd pass a deer going the other way. And it's like, wow, they're really getting used to us around here. But I think they were trying to get away from the wolves or the mountain lions. I don't know. We got a lot of mountain lions too. But
Have you had any attacks? Mountain lion attacks on people?
No, right around here we haven't. They have over by Bozeman, and they have down
California.
Missoula gets cats. Oh, and right here in Helena, they get cats here in town all the time because the deer come into town.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen some deer right here.
Yeah, town all the time just because of the deer. I mean, the deer cross the
highway. What do? Do you call 911 and they send out animal control?
I suppose they got somebody that.
You wouldn't want that running around where there's kids.
No, and Fish and Wildlife's right here in town too. For the region, so they've got guys here that are.
So something like that, I generally call 911 and keep it in sight until the authorities show up.
Barry and 220. Yeah, they're curious, and then of course, smell of food really adds to curiosity, but. It's a dangerous, you're up in the mountains and even if you just trip and twist your ankle, if you're by yourself, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
If it's 2 miles back to your truck, but, try to be safe and ideally take somebody with you just so there's 2 of you.
Yeah. Stephen B says territorial turkeys can also be a piss off. I think that would be more like dinner. It's like you want to. I hear that geese, for example, can be really brutal, but I keep thinking just grab it by the neck and swing it around. So it stops.
Yeah, you gotta be. You just have to be meaner than it. That's all. Just hit it faster.
Are they still trucking out old tailings piles to get leftover gold? Yes, it's as a matter of fact we have. It's typically not tailings. Let's get technical here. tailings is the crushed sand-like material that used to be rock that they've extracted material from at a mill, and waste dumps are the low grade or lower grade than ore material that's hauled out of a mine and thrown out of the way to get to the ore. So generally, your tailings aren't that good, but your waste dumps can be pretty good.
Correct.
And
yeah, and just remember on those waste dumps, guys, when you're looking for gold, especially, if they couldn't see it, they probably didn't haul it away because everything was visual mostly from the old time miners. So a lot of those waste dumps sometimes can be interesting especially with the metal detector or something, because if they didn't see it, it didn't get hauled off the mountain, especially if they were hauling it with mules and bags, something, panniards full of material. Because they tried to high grade the deposit as much as they possibly could because it took time and effort to carry it down off the mountain.
Well, another thing is that, both down there in Tucson at Ryan's mine and up here at Montana B, in both cases, if you screen that material to 1/2 inch minus, you did a 2-to-1 upgrade.
Right, you've eliminated material.
Well, the thing is that the coarser stuff tends to be the lower grade stuff. The higher grade tends to be more fragile and everything. So we went from 1/2 ounce to the ton to 1.3 ounces per ton here.
Yeah.
And down in Tucson, we went from, I think it was 1/3 of an ounce to the ton to 3/4 of an ounce to the ton.
I believe it because, and that's when the last 2 weeks we've talked about historical perspective. If you can understand what the miners did at the time period, there's some opportunity, but you have to try to figure out when was the mine worked, ideally if you can find any history at all. But that perspective historically of what they were capable of doing, in a lot of cases, it was visual. When they found a seam they were taking for their ore, everything else went on the waste piles because they were trying to high grade it because they had to carry it off the mountain, whether it was pack horses or a backpack. So those old guys were efficient at high grading, but some of that high grade ore today could be worth $1,200 a ton. It could be, or better than an ounce of gold per ton. So you'd recheck, and like Keith says, try to high grade it again by, upgrading it.
Well,
screen it, play with it, check it.
Another thing is quite often that way you don't need to use a jaw crusher either.
No, it's already kind of pulverized and been laying there for years, degrading more.
I was just doing some research today. I won't give you any identification. It's close to where we're doing our major work over there.
Mm-hmm.
There was some work on a mine. It was what they called it native gold, which would mean free milling metallic gold.
Right.
And it was running a reported $100 a ton in 1956.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 3 ounces to the ton.
$35 gold,
maybe
at best.
Yeah.
It might have been $33 gold.
Yeah, so roughly 3 ounces to the ton, and they pulled out a reported $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got 100 tons at 3 ounces per ton out of this mine, according to the records.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's another one that was running $5 to $100 a ton, and total production less than $50,000, and the dumps were reported to run $12 a ton. Well, that's almost a 1/2 ounce to the ton, probably about 0.4.
At $12 a ton, that was at $30 gold or $35 gold.
1956.
Yeah, $35 gold, maybe 40. There was a time period in there that hit $41 at one point. But if you put $1,800 gold against that number now, that $12 material becomes, a heck of a number.
Yep.
So your historical perspective plays a lot into your hunt.
Yep. And so that's, doing these record searches and stuff. I got a lot of stuff from the Bureau of Mines there.
Yeah.
And it's, you can spend a lot of time looking at records and cross-checking. And, what I was doing today was I was looking at the historical records of the district.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had some website up that, land status and this and that and the other. And so I was going from a topo map on one side to the things on the other and switching. I said, okay, this looks like that mine there, and there doesn't appear to be any active claims in this section. So I put it on the list to go check out because if they were pulling an average of 3 ounces per ton, well, that's what I call interesting.
Well, and another thing I found with some of these, especially old hard rock mines, is they may have poked in, along the ridge or whatever, that what outcrop they could see, and then they may have ran a tunnel in and stoped some and worked down, but they never went deeper. They never tried to follow it deeper because it was too damn much work to start another adit deeper, or the economics changed. At a certain point, $30 gold or $35 gold was not worth going after. Even if it was 2 ounces a ton, the costs involved in the infrastructure and labor weren't worth the effort. Now, if you had a mine up here running 2 ounces per ton and straight ahead, oh my gosh.
Especially if it's free milling.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be in some numbers that blow your mind.
Well, and that's, I was looking at this, and the thing that caught my attention was native gold.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff I've been dealing with so far sucks. You guys up here in Montana, you don't know how to make easy gold, damn it.
Yeah, there is. It's the luck of the mines,
Oh, yeah.
And you go over the hill and you may actually be able to see gold in the rock, in the next mine. You don't know. You just have to go hunt the mines and try and use every, reasonable concept you can think of.
Patrick, yes, mine names do change. There's no law that says they can't. And so when ownership changes and things like
change.
that, it very often changes. So yes, they can. That can get kind of complicated.
Especially in history, when you're looking at history, because if it changed owners or companies and they changed the name of the mine, it can be, if you're lucky, you can find, some other evidence that says that's that mine, but not necessarily.
I saw one today where there were 2 mines on the map called the Bonanza, about 1.5 miles apart. Now, which one? I mean, if you're looking in a record, looking up a Bonanza mine in this general area, which one is it?
Well, sometimes that's a clerical error, though, too, because somebody's, they found a mine up there and said, this must be the Bonanza mine. So they start calling it that. And lo and behold, the Bonanza mine's 1/2 mile over there.
Are you saying that government map makers make mistakes?
Oh, yeah. Well, and Forest Service and Bureau Mine. I mean, there is mistakes made. You bet.
Yeah. Things are,
so that's why, my favorite thing is why. Why is it that? I always ask why about everything. And, people get frustrated. They're like, why do you ask so many questions? Well, if you really want the truth, and if you really want the truth, if you listen to enough different explanations, somewhere in there you'll find, there's the answer.
Yeah, that's another one, Gulf Stream, is sometimes it was for water control. If they went down,
exactly,
they hit groundwater,
right, and they couldn't pump it.
As long as the tunnel goes out the side of the hill, water's not an issue.
But that's in your country especially, I know there's some high water areas on those veins, and some of that we have here too, where you got water running out of an adit that's at the damn near the top of the mountain. The vein is pumping.
I may check that out later. While I'm laid up from the surgery, I'll be doing a lot of research because that'll be all I can do. And
Boulder. I've got a couple of claims I got to go up and look at that are over there by Boulder here soon. When the weather breaks.
Yeah,
and actually they're private. They're patented ground too, so it could be interesting. Private land.
Yeah, Randy.
Because private land here is a lot easier to. You've got the Department of Environmental, you get your bond using your small miners exemption or using the exploration license, but you can literally within 30 days you can be digging on a private ranch. If it's private land, private mineral holdings, you can be in there digging test holes fairly fast. versus public lands.
Do you even need any permits?
Yeah, you need a Department of Environmental. You have to have a bond. You have to bond whatever you're digging, even on private land.
Man,
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they shut a friend of mine down up here a couple years ago. He was digging on his family's ranch by himself. And they came along and said, "Oh, wait a minute, you're gold mining. You have to post a $10,000 bond." And he said, "No, we own this. We own the mineral rights, we own the land, and we own the water rights." And they're like, "No, you still got to post a bond, $10,000."
I'm digging a stock pond.
And they told him if he didn't pay his $10,000 bond, they were going to fine him $100,000 a week or something for not getting a performance bond for reclamation on private land, on his own land.
Yeah, Forrest says you need to check with the old guys that have been in the area for years. They know stuff.
That's always a good, if you can find old miners, and granted, some of their stories are a little embellished,
You think?
but you can always find some truth in what they're telling you. Or if they say there was a certain mine they remember working in that did, it really had some interesting silver or some good gold. Those are definitely things to make notes and go hunt them down, go find them. But there's getting to be a lot fewer old timers. We're multiple generations, like in this area, away from anybody who really mined. I mean, there wasn't that many miners left. A lot of the guys that when Anaconda shut in 1980, 81, a lot of those were older people that had been in mining already for 50 years. And literally, it was their excuse to finally give up. And there was no younger generations to replace that.
I heard somebody told me, I don't know if it was on the live stream last week or not, but anyhow, somebody said that it used to be that you could walk underground from Butte to Anaconda and never go to surface.
I don't know if it was that far, but you could walk for miles. Actually, like over here at Garnett Ghost Town, at one time, the Chinese were working in the lower part of the drainage, but all the way from the interstate at the railroad track there, they said you could walk underground all the way to that mining town up on the top of the mountain in the winter. They packed all their supplies in through the tunnels up to the top of the town, going through everybody's claims, but everybody's tunnels were all connected. And it was placer mines under gravel, but they tunneled that thing all the way to the top for 9 miles or something like that.
That's amazing.
Yep.
I'd like to look at a ghost town. Metal detector ghost town.
Yeah, I had an old miner who helped me a lot. I'm really thankful that he had been a copper miner in this area and gold, both placer, but his hard rock copper mines and that he taught me quite a bit about prospecting and looking.
Okay, smoking. The question of what is legal or required depends entirely on the local bureaucrats. If your BLM office says it's okay, that makes it okay.
Yep.
Because the law is not specific.
No, it isn't. It depends on your ranger you have in that district and possibly the geologist. Like BLM a lot of times has mineral geologists on staff, and those guys understand mining. And if you say, well, this is what I want to do, they're like, oh, go ahead, because we understand what you're doing. Now they're not so bureaucratic, unlike Forest Service. They seem to recruit people for that industry from somewhere in a big city, I think. Yeah. They didn't grow up on a ranch, and they didn't grow up in a mining family or a logging family. I think you're excluded if you grew up in one of those.
By the way, Eva suggested if you do have an office that will let you do that, if you can get it in writing, life is much better. Especially as they have a change of people, then all of a sudden you're not in big trouble. You got the letter, so to speak.
I actually think Goldstream, we may be the first generation to actually make a lot of money in mining going forward. Just because the world that these people want with solar and electric cars and all that takes, give or take, 5 to 7 times more mining than we've currently been doing in the world. So And like in in the United States here, we literally have destroyed our whole mining industry. We have they're starting some iron ore again up in Minnesota and some copper mines, and Michigan is starting to reopen a little bit, but we have no steel mills left. I mean, we have destroyed our whole engine of prosperity in this country because of these rules and regulations.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, the whole economic situation worldwide. You have all this COVID stimulus and stuff they just been printing money like, a 747 burns avgas.
Yeah, fuel.
And so it's entirely possible you're going to see some big changes because the whole situation changed. When you have an economic dislocation and people are desperate, the regulators try not to get in people's way because they get shot.
Right, they disappear. Yeah, that could be an issue.
And you also have the price of precious metals could skyrocket.
Well, and you've got, you start doing like we've done with China and some of these countries where you start applying pressure here and there in trade negotiation. And at some point, if you're going to start to, fix your own nation, you have to go after, wealth is created from resources of some sort. Well, it has to start somewhere, and it starts at mining or logging or agriculture.
Yeah.
And then from there, it builds out into manufacturing and all kinds of other things. So you really have to end up back at mining at some point. And now the economics are getting to a point where we can do a great job mining. We have some awesome science in the last 30 years and processes that they never had for extraction. And we've got safety, and we know how to fix things that they didn't even worry about years ago. They didn't care if they washed the whole drainage out.
Yeah. Now, Randy, whether it would be him, which we cannot mention, or somebody else, the whole situation has to change because massive restrictions, massive increases in costs lead us to a catastrophic result, which then, since people just don't want to die,
no.
They work very hard to change the way things happen. And so you can look, the bigger the deflection one way, the bigger the reaction the other way. And I mean, I heard something, get this, they're talking about making a tax on unrealized capital gains. In other words, if the value of your house went up last year, you got to pay taxes on it, even if you didn't sell your house.
That ain't gonna work.
That would be catastrophic.
By the way,
Uh-huh.
you will know that is going to pass if you see our dear leaders in Washington pulling their money out of their blind trusts and out of the stock market. When they pass it, they're going to pass it just before they crash the market.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
That day, I think that day is coming fast.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I mean that would be a catastrophic regulation. And
California wants to tax rich people that used to live there for up to 10 years after they leave.
yeah, what could possibly
Yeah.
go wrong? So say if it ain't gonna work, it ain't gonna work. Or as somebody said, if it can't go on forever, it won't.
No,
And
no,
then-
at some point, this whole thing, the house of cards falls, and then we get to go start over again, and some of this regulation's just going to have to go.
By the way, I have a question about Montana minerals.
Uh-huh.
Do we have rare earths here?
Well, the Stillwater mine's one of the few producing in the United States as far as palladiums.
Yeah, because
Yes,
I'm
they
trying to-
exist here, but the problem is the assays are expensive when you get to testing for all of it. And nobody's really been doing a lot of it. I mean, some of the guys I'm dealing with now are starting to, and I've been looking for it the last few years
The reason
just
I
to
asked-
see what's really here, because in the old days, it was either gold or copper they went after. If they got silver, great. But they didn't really go for silver. They went for gold or copper.
Well,
Well-
the reason I ask is because our technology depends on
Lots of rare
The Green New
earths.
Deal would really depend on
Yeah,
rare
no,
earths. And right now, most of them are mined in China
Well,
or South Africa.
I know most of the rare earth mines also have to have processing facilities.
Well, see, and that's
Nearby.
an issue. See, China's one of the biggest processors. That, and we don't have processing. Even some of the ore from here goes to China or Germany, one of the two. I'm not sure.
Well, I think they're
But-
reopening the Mountain Pass mine in California. there.
Right? And they had processing.
Yeah,
though.
they had processing
But
too.
even their ore from here, I mean, is leaving. You know, the concentrates are leaving to be processed.
Yeah, I do not know, but that's a possibility, but it's not something that's real easy. On the Idaho border called the Snowbird Mine, cerium and thorium. Well, thorium's not a rare earth though. That's a radio. I mean, that's particularly possibly a radioactive
Yeah.
fuel, but
It's on the Idaho
I don't know if it's used for anything else except reactor fuel, and we don't use thorium reactors at the present time. So I'm not sure how useful the thorium is. Yttrium and other stuff. Okay.
Yeah. No, it exists here, and it's a matter of guys looking for it, and checking your rock. But you start doing some of those assays get to be, $150, $250 an assay. It takes some capital behind you in order to do what you're doing. I used a tungsten welding rod.
Yeah, probably not
Yeah.
that much though. I wouldn't think. Thorium's actually pretty common. It's more common than uranium. So I don't know how valuable it is. Back in the 50s, they were talking about making a thorium reactor economy instead of uranium because it's inherently harder to divert for explosive devices.
By weight.
I guess
Okay.
the welding rods.
We're not arguing.
Yeah. I have no.
See,
clue.
we're learning too.
It's nice we have a lot of smart people out there.
Yeah, this is fun, guys. I'm glad, As Goldstream, as far as we all as miners have to put pressure where they need pressure if we want to have small miners.
Yeah.
I mean, whether that's at a county or district, regional level, you put pressure. And the other thing is on some of these boards, water conservation boards, and that as a miner, try to get a seat or get somebody to run that'll at least talk back to the miners, and then what's going on, so they're not pulling these stupid little rules and regulations and nobody's there to represent mining or a miner. The more we can get together as miners and show that we're good people, it's going to help us all.
What about mining associations?
Well, that mining associations are good. Here, we're trying to kind of relocate some of the original mining districts because under our Congress had originally given all of our mining districts, if you can reestablish the original mining districts, they actually have the mining district, which is just a group of miners that, vote a president or chairman, and that actually can make up a lot of rules and patrol their own mining district, which kind of takes MSHA and DEQ and some of these, they actually take a back seat to the mining district. And because the mining districts were actually authorized by Congress to exist and to have those rights. So, there's some really interesting depth to some of this, especially here in the United States. If we can utilize it and go back, to those rules, they exist. Yeah, it's hard to get any group. I don't care if it's farmers or anybody to speak as one voice. But if you can slowly get, guys who are willing to go to a meeting, a county meeting or whatever, and represent a few of you miners, at least if they voice the opinion, you may at least get to be heard. And if there's something crazy they're trying to shove down your throat, you can be, updated as to that.
Now, we've got somebody asking about assays again.
Yeah.
And so I'm writing down the Colorado,
That's
Maybe 4 or
cool.
5.
The mining groups are great. As long as you don't teach your people that even if they're hobbyists, they're miners though. So that they look at it from that light, because if all of us are just hobbyists, they don't put any strength in your voice.
Okay.
If you approach it that, hey, we're part of the mining industry, you've got a little bit of background with a voice.
Okay, April. This is
I agree.
the assayer I usually use. He's pretty quick. It's $45 an assay, and that includes the sample prep and everything. He does require payment in advance, so you usually just send a check with it. And so I like him because he's quick. I get fast results, and we have double checked him, so he seems to be accurate. But if you send him a sample, you want to make sure you give him some idea what's in it. So if there's some special preparations he has to do, he can do it. Like if you think it's a telluride ore, or it's got a lot of sulfides in it or whatever, just send that, along with the information there. And that way he can make sure if he needs to do anything special with it, he can, to give you good, accurate results.
Yeah, Patrick, they do have meaning in the United States, because those mining districts were established by Congress, that the mining districts some mining districts could actually elect their own sheriff. And a sheriff has power. And those laws they still exist. Unfortunately, we got into big mining corporations and no little miners, and they let those districts fall into disrepair. And if you can find the original meeting minutes and that to reestablish the district, the district and the miners who have claims there have some serious power if they're willing to back it up.
Okay. Resort Dog, you said Reed in LA missed all my values. Did you double check whoever found the values? Because there's an inherent motivation for assayers to find gold when none is there.
Yeah.
Because then you send them more samples.
Well,
So did you get that double checked?
Yeah. And see here, even a lot of our maps have the mining districts right on them. It's just that everybody died and quit the district, basically. So it was never kept as an established, committee. But it can be reestablished. And Goldstream, as far as anything you could do up there in Canada, to even go into the classrooms at the school or something and give a little presentation on gold panning and mining and a little bit of that light history, to anything we can do to educate kids to what we can do today versus what you could do even 50 years ago in mining, is so different. I mean, we're so much more efficient at recoveries and the right equipment and being able to reestablish the whole environment. As far as you're cleaning the environment, it's like in these drainages here, they used a lot of mercury. You can collect that, you can catch it, you're cleaning that drainage out, you can get rid of the scrap iron and everything else you find. And you can reestablish the reclamation to where you've got a nicer drainage now than it probably looked when the first miners got there.
I've done that from time to time, Zioxio.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, anybody, even having adults up to the mining, site where we're mining and showing them what we're getting and giving them some information, they just go, wow, this is really neat. And all they've ever heard is mining's bad. Just bad. It's bad. And it isn't.
Yeah, they say it's just, it's like
It's like the Orange Man.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, any public exposure that you can, get as, positive as possible. When I walk drainages, I'll pick up, beer cans or pop cans or whatever. I'm always cleaning and carrying somebody else's garbage out. And I've seen a few other guys that have YouTube videos doing it. And I always give them a good thumbs up and a comment, because anything we can do to educate people and to be very responsible people in what we do is good for all of us. We each represent each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Some more claims around them here. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Goldstream. Just for PR purposes. But PR only does so much. In Tucson, they have a big mining company, Rosemont, and I mean they spent a god awful amount of money on PR and this and that.
$200 billion.
Million. And
schools, libraries, the works.
And they still haven't been able to get into operation, because all it takes is one environmental group to sue you every time the last lawsuit finally gets decided in your favor, and you just can't get started.
Well, our past president was really, really helping with that problem, especially here in Montana. But I don't know what'll happen now.
It's not going to be good for the near future. I can guarantee you that.
Not for the next couple of years, anyway.
Well, if we
Be my
put
guess.
pressure on our local legislature to get them to stand up to issues.
We're just reading through the comments here.
We're doing fine, Chris. Well, the only thing I can see, Goldstream, is you might want to have them sign a waiver so that if they get hurt, it's not your fault. I don't know what the laws are up there. Down here, basically, legality can be ridiculous.
Yeah, you can do a hold harmless agreement here that actually is inherent with being on that type of site. That actually came here in the United States. It came out of the equine business, because if you were handling a horse and the horse kicked you, you could sue the owner. Well, now they've got inherent laws, and I'm not trying to be a lawyer. I'm not, but they changed some of those, that if you're in there handling a horse, you're inherent to getting hurt, and you're voluntarily doing that. You're kind of on your own, and you can do that in a lot of other things too. You need to, hold harmless agreement that they sign.
Yeah, talk to a local lawyer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, see what in Canada. I don't know what the rules there would be, but
I don't know. Hard to tell. Let's see. So you've covered all your subjects
yeah,
today,
pretty
huh?
much. I mean, I thought if in the future someday we could maybe do something on mine planning and get a little more detailed, because there's so much to it. But I guess we'll see what the responses are. And
Yeah. Well, and say as later on in the year, I'll have plenty of stuff to make videos on. I'm also hoping if I can get the project going at Butte there at the Montana Tech, I'm hoping I can videotape some of the tests they're doing and things like that, because that would be really cool.
That would be really cool.
And so I'm hoping to do that.
Oh yeah, it's amazing in some of these drainages how much bird shot and how many bullets you find in your sluice box. It's just amazing to me. You'd almost think it was a shooting gallery or a gun club.
It was when I was trying to use a metal detector that one time. That was frustrating. It was either casings or bullets. That was all I found.
Yeah, a lot of casings, but bullet. It's amazing when I do my cleanups for my big plant, the amount of lead every time. I mean, you literally would have, I don't know, probably an ounce or two of lead. Old cowboy bullets and some ball.
Round ball?
Yeah, round ball and a lot of bird shot, which that country used to have a lot of grouse in it, but it's just amazing that all that ends up in the creek somehow, or that you're, digging it out of there.
I'm not sure, April. They have a specific group that does the extractive metallurgy and stuff, and so we'll see if we can basically rent a graduate student there and get some really good testing done for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily no good smoking, but you just have to be careful and cover yourself.
Look at that.
Well, Zioxio, go to your local gun range. Yeah. No, I say it's a bit frustrating for me right now because I like to be in the field. That's what I really enjoy doing.
And maybe at some point in the spring I could do a video also on trying to read ground on some drainages, because that seems to be where we're getting some of the questions is you're looking at the drainage, what's it telling you? What do
Sure.
You're looking for exposed bedrock or giant exposed boulders. Ideally in a drainage, you're looking for the high energy channel, which is going to be big rocks buried, but I could probably try to, get some video spliced together that maybe can show some of that, a little more explanatory, I guess.
Hey, Zioxio, screw you. Just don't let some silly minus 20-degree temperature.
Yeah, 22 below yesterday morning kind of was, I didn't even want to go outside. Went out and hauled wood in and had to do something else. And it's like, man, it's just bitter. And I grew up in Minnesota, so I'm tough, but I don't know. I'm getting weak in my old age.
By the way, last week was my birthday, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was talking with my daughter, and she said, I told her, I'm going to get a fishing license here once, the new season opens up, because it's like $103 for everything.
Yeah.
And it's only good till March 1st.
Yeah.
So I might as well wait. And she said, well, when you're ready to buy it, let me know and I'll give you the money.
Oh, well, that was a nice birthday present.
That was a nice birthday present. Yeah.
See.
And she said, how can I get it? I said, I got a PayPal account. She goes, okay, I can do that.
There you go. I'm no longer recreational in Nevada.
No longer recreational in Nevada? Man, that sucks.
Underground as a recreational miner. Well, if you're under exploration, I mean, theoretically, I don't know what Nevada's rules are. You'd have to check, that the rules for that area. But like here, if I've got my exploration license and that, I can go work in an old mine underground as long as I'm not pulling out tons and tons of ore.
Hey, Zioxio,
there's
we may
not
take
a
you up
big
on
issue.
that.
Your reclamation bond is going to be minor too, to it being it's maybe an open portal already, or you didn't have to do much to open it. You can do, as far as exploration is a little more open in the rules and what you can do versus going to a plan of operations mining for Montana. Now, every state and every area is going to have their own little things. So,
yeah. Let's see. Do you fly fish? Not really.
40 below. Yeah, I know it was cold up there. It was east of here too and north of here, but we didn't get that.
Jimmy says the best thing is live minnows.
Yeah.
Anything more than hand tools? Well, that could be.
Well, that's kind of here too, is that where you go to equipment or an electric jackhammer, you can drop over the other side of that line.
Yeah, that's it. It all depends on the particular. Regulator.
I've done things they don't like, but they kind of leave me alone because they know I'm not going away either.
The refuge outlawed even hand tools. Yeah, if you're on a wildlife refuge or a wilderness area, God knows what kind of regulations they're going to have.
Yeah, the wilderness is a whole different.
Well,
you can pan, I think, in the wilderness, just pan in the creek, but I don't know how much digging you can do.
I have no clue, man. Yeah, it's.
I mean, I think you can recreational but you can't.
It's pretty out of balance right now.
Well, they got carried away trying to make more and more land wildlife, for that reason.
Well, preservation as opposed to multiple use. Yeah.
Yeah, wilderness, study area. Well, that was the grouse thing down on them claims I had. Because I'm like, okay, where on the maps did it say that you're studying the grouse in this area? And they're like, well, it really isn't on the map, but it kind of falls into, da da da. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I was like, we looked at everything that applied to our plan of operations, and sage grouse wasn't one of them. But yet here did we come through and make up basically throwing what I like to call hula hoops. They don't want you there, and they'll do everything they can that you're not there if they can help it. And they were a little perturbed that I hired my own biologist on that one too, just because they, then now they couldn't come back with BS because we had other wildlife biologist working for us. So that kind of put a thorn in them, but it actually got the job done. Wilderness areas. Yeah, them grouse are tasty. You're right. That's what I told them. We'll just wait till the season opens and we'll go take care of the grouse, and then we won't have a problem. And they didn't think. They looked at me like I was really crazy, and I just laughed.
Night, April.
I'm like, one weekend we can take care of the grouse problem. I have a claim want to run the dust on this.
Well, resort dog, sometimes you need a Bosch hammer and a generator. I mean, it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah. All hand steel and a hammer is a lot of work. The moss. The rules and regulations have gotten. I mean, the question always becomes: is the area open for mineral interests or not? If it is, well, then some of the rules have to not apply. But
yeah, no, it's weird too. And another thing,
and that's something all you guys, if you're on BLM or state land or federal forest, definitely check to make sure you are in an area that is open for minerals, because if it isn't, that'll be another fine that they'll dream up.
Oh, oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Forrest, I never did get that letter somebody asked for last week. Did you ever get it? Did you forget to send it? Just giving you a reminder there. Oh my goodness.
20 buckets of hand with a sledge and a chisel. Yeah.
I presume Alaska is a lot easier to deal with, but there's probably even areas there if there's salmon habitat or something. They get pretty tough.
If you're on a drainage salmon rivers and that. And we have that here. We have the bull trout here that they use for their excuse. And the western cutthroat, and they'll use that, they'll pull the fish card on you if they can.
Yeah. Hello, Jason. The funny thing is you'll have these rivers that are raging in the springtime, full of sediment
and boulders. They're running downhill.
And then they sit there and say, well, if you just shovel a little rock, you're going to destroy the habitat. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I could understand if it was like, okay, this is the season where the eggs are in the gravel or something.
Like that piece we finished mining and did the reclamation on up there, there's more cutthroat in there now than there was before we mined through there, just because that creek, a lot of it, a lot of it was intermittent. It was going down under the rock piles and through. The water was still moving through the drainage, but it wasn't visual. It wasn't on the surface. And now it's literally a creek on the surface for part of it. The ground is still saturated, but it was the best improvement for a fishery you could have done. And actually, the BLM in Alaska did some studies, and they found on some of that where they were doing all that big mining with the big equipment, they actually had their restoration after like 5 to 7 years. The fishery came back better than anybody ever had documented the fishery. So miners can play a good part in environmental, repair too. And that's always a card to use if you're going to go into an area that had old workings and that, hey, we can reclaim all this and make it look good again. Well, because it is a giant landscaping project. That's all it is.
The problem with a lot of environmentalists is they're nature worshipers.
Right.
In other words, they literally believe no matter how poorly it's working, nature is better than the best run human intervention.
Like the pronghorn antelope thing down in
we had one in Arizona where they fishing game wanted to go out onto the Cabeza Prieta Wildlife Refuge and build what they call guzzlers. They're basically catchments.
Yep, I've seen.
Provide water year round for the animals because they have the endangered billboards.
Yeah.
About, I think worldwide, less than 1,500. And so then the environmentalists go, you can't do that. It's unnatural. It's unnatural. And so they couldn't do it. And then they had a drought, and about 1/3 of the entire world's population
they're extinct.
Died off.
Yeah. Well, that's part of this whole nature thing is you can love it to death if you're not careful. Yeah. Management is much better than loving it to death.
Well, and I say, if you know what you're doing, you can manage it successfully. Nature is ruthless and will destroy as easy as it's make. And so you get these boom and bust cycles, and you get forest fires, and then new vegetation, and then
that's what Oxio is bringing up right there.
Yeah,
is logging and thinning and that ecological cycle of that forest. And forest fires are a great tool too, but when you let it turn into like all this beetle killing now when it burns, there's no soil even for about 75 years. It looks like the moon because it sterilizes everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hot and so intense. It literally sterilizes the soil.
Yeah.
And the weeds won't even grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lack of management is
very destructive.
It's more destructive than letting it going in and doing selective cutting or harvesting. And these drainages are the same way. If you can go back in and do reclamation, you literally can make that within 3 years. Nobody can tell you ever mined it. And honestly, that's another reason to keep a field notebook. If you mine an area and then you reclaim it, if you keep a field notebook of where you left off, if economics change, that you can go back in and mine, some more ground in there or something, or your personal economics change. If you got that in a notebook in a line, 10 years later, you can walk right to there and go, we mined right to here. When it's reclaimed right, you can't tell.
Well, blind sight, I can't disagree with that. And we'll see you when you can get up here, but safety first.
Yeah, I don't blame you as far as trucking.
Yeah, that's
way.
These roads are pretty ugly right now.
If you could pick your cities you go to, it might not be so bad. But
well, I tell you what,
there's some places I wouldn't want to be in. I drove truck back in the 80s.
Well, the other thing
I always said just keep sending them food back east to keep them there.
The thing that I see right now is the roads are so patchy that I took my truck out of 4 four-wheel drive, but left the front hubs engaged so I can put it in if I need to. But if you were driving a semi-truck or whatever, you got a chain up to go up the pass, take the chains off, and hope you don't hit a patch of snow in the shadow there. And oh my God.
No, Goldstream, you're right. I mean, they go after this sediment and this and that, and that's not true. I mean, if you mining like we are, that turbidity in that creek never changed because we wouldn't let it. I mean, our settling ponds and how we handled our process water, that water was crystal clear going back into that creek at the bottom of our mining claim. And once people seen that, even the ranchers below me, once they seen how we handled our water, they were like, oh crap, what's wrong with this? But everybody's
how did you do that?
Huh?
How did you get it clean like that? Did you
Well,
filter it through
I did
gravel?
multiple settling ponds.
Mm-hmm.
We had a sluice ditch coming off of our actual plant, and we would let that, and we'd take a lot of that gravel we were actually using for some roads. So we were pulling the nice clean gravel that comes right off because the clay will wash away. So we'd take the gravel and stockpile it.
Okay.
But then we had a little S pattern into a little pond, which was a set of trenches is what it really was, that were fairly deep. But that clay would pretty much settle out in those. And some of that clay we retrieved because we did some subsoil irrigation on the drainage when we reclaimed it, where we put in clay berms inside in the ground. The water table could raise to there, and it had to run over it's under the surface of the ground, but it sub irrigates the ground. So we did sub irrigation down so that our grass seed and everything would grow just like that, because the ground actually had moisture under it.
Okay. So basically,
but our sediments, anything but with our settling ponds there, and then basically we had a rock wall at the bottom that once it got to that pond and the overflow, it literally went through another gravel filter before it went back in, and it was crystal clear.
Yeah.
We never had problems, short of if we had a breach somewhere or we were digging, had an overflow or problem that way. But as far as sediments in the creek, no, we cleaned the drainage up. There was no sediments in the creek.
No.
We couldn't, because that's what will shut you down. They fly over with a helicopter and say, oh my God, look at the creek. You're done. If that's all running red and muddy.
Go ahead and take over there.
Yeah, Secret Squirrel. If you can reestablish mining districts, believe it or not, there's some interesting laws there. And you can access some of that information, start digging for it. The Mineral and Mining Advisory Council here in the United States, now they've set up, there's a group here in Montana, Eastern and Western Division. I know California, Oregon, Washington, they're trying to reestablish those mining districts for that very reason, that the power within the mining district is pretty amazing. Yeah, the EPA guys. That's the redundancy of the government. We've got a Department of Environmental right here in Montana, which is literally EPA, to deal with our local community and region. And then you got to get EPA, federal regulation on top of that, which is completely insane because they have no idea what's even going on here. But they want to control it. Yeah, I've even used some good landscape fabrics. If you put a filter wall of rock in and then put in landscape fabric, you can literally create your own filtering system that water, even leaving a small plant or whatever, that water is crystal clear coming out the other side. And it's a cheap way of doing it. Yeah, they're using every toy to pay attention to who might be where. Satellites, you got to see the satellite imagery they got. If they know that you're up somewhere, they can look at a satellite in real time and see what you're doing. And that's government level stuff, but it's unbelievable. They can even
I was
map.
wondering, Jason.
They can map the ground by satellite month to month and tell exactly how many square feet of ground you dug up or opened up without ever coming out to your site. Well, Jason, the regulations are there, but in the red tape, but once you start going through the process and kind of start understanding it and getting your ducks in a row, it's not so bad. I mean, we probably make it sound like, oh, it's just terror. And there's days that you get frustrated because it's like, great. But if you work through the process and start to understand it and plan ahead, you're not going to go out, get a claim, and then go be working on it right away because of the process. That's the problem. The time delay in the process is the frustrating part. I mean, once you've kind of started to put a plan in place and what you're going to do and get past those hurdles, there's still a lot of gold to get, and you can make money mining gold. You can, have a lot of fun weekends mining gold, whatever. There is some mining law books in Montana. The Bureau of Mines does have a mining law book. There is also federal mining law that you can look up on the internet. And you can even look up case law with mining. That's really, really interesting because, matter of fact, we were just talking about that with my claim up there. If they give me a bunch of crap with the grizzly bears, there's what they call a takings law, and it's been tried many, many times in court, that if they don't want you to go and mine your ground, being you own the minerals, when you have a claim and everything's legal, you own those minerals, you have a right to those minerals. If they say, no, we don't want you to do that, then it's really up to the federal government or the state to pay you for not mining it.
I'll have to check tomorrow. Let's see. First of all, flocculants are chemicals you add to the water that cause the real small particles to stick together.
Yep.
And that's why Goldstream is saying don't use them, because you're adding something. So that adds another regulation thing.
Yep. That's where you get the EPA part or DEQ. You do not want to add, as far as in the stream or in your tailings ponds or that. You do not want to be adding a product.
Yeah. Now, Secret Squirrel, is there a mining law book you know of? Yes. The question is, are you talking general mining law? Are you talking state-specific mining law? Things like that. In general, the kind of mining law that you need to worry about would be permitting and this and that, and that'll be state-specific. General mining law, they do make textbooks. I mean, they make books on that stuff, but it's a very specialized field of law. You get into things like apex rule and such as that. So that's a different sort of thing. If you're looking at mining law as a legal field, that can get pretty complicated and specialized.
Montana does have here, Bureau of Mines does have some publications on
I think I got one
some of
there.
the basic law stuff. I think you did have one. I was going to say, I thought I just seen one. And they also have Montana's got a best practices. You got that one too.
This is Mining Codes of Montana.
Yeah, there you go. Mining codes.
But this again is more regulation as opposed to legalities.
Well, that if you got in an argument with the guy who owns the claim next to you or above you or below you, that actually is the rule, as how that's handled. Because in a lot of cases, it's a civil issue. BLM or whoever doesn't want any part of you and the neighbor arguing.
Forest
Bear.
magic.
Yeah.
Hey, Bear,
What?
did you see your doctor's name?
What?
John Galt.
John Galt. Really?
Yes, his name is John Galt.
Well, that'd be good. Yeah, no, the Montana's got a best practices for placer mining too, like mine setup and reclamation and kind of things that they want to see in your plan of operations. That's It's a cheap pamphlet. I think it was like $4 from the Bureau of Mines. But it gives you some notes also to be when you're considering your plan of operations. It gives you things that go, yeah, check, check, check. Yes, I'm doing that. I got that. I thought of that. Because you don't want to miss something in your plan of operation. Yeah, see, our setback here, as far as Montana, we can build stream crossings as long as we armor them, like for the dump trucks or the payloaders and that. We can actually cross the creeks and streams, provided you don't get in a fisheries issue. But we can actually even file on some of these drainages. We can file for what they call a 310 permit and literally move the creek. So we can mine one side of the valley. We can actually move the creek, mine under where the creek was. We can mine the other bench, the other side of the drainage, and then you have to restore the creek in your reclamation plan. But you can get the permits, a 304 permit and a 310 permit here in That's one of the reasons I picked Montana. I had originally thought of going to Alaska or the Yukon to mine. And one of the things I picked, because Montana's regulations on some stuff really aren't that bad. You know, you still get the red tape you got to jump through, but there's things you can do here.
Yeah, well, I don't usually forest, but I can take a nap almost anywhere if I feel like it.
He's not feeling well. I think he might have a kidney stone.
It could be.
SGS books. Yeah, that's a good. I don't know if you've been on the last two Secret Squirrel, but last Sunday and the Sunday before, I went over the first Sunday. I went over how to go hunting, and Keith and I went through with historical perspective, all the different places you can find information on an area that you're looking at, and all of that can pertain to finding success out there. If you can go back and look at areas and look at what was done and build the history. And then, you got your maps for some of the geology or the drainages, and you can just start building. And that starts giving you targets to go after, whether you're metal detecting or panning, or you're actually going to try to start doing test holes somewhere on an actual placer.
I'll do my best, Forrest. No, I don't know. I think it may just be a back spasm here. I'm not sure. But the CT scan did show a little inflammation in the ureter, so we'll see. Oh, you may notice I'm not feeling too good.
I noticed that.
You're doing a great job, Jim.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got everybody here tonight. This is a lot of fun. And, if we can help you guys and, find some success out there finding gold, it'll be pretty cool.
Well, let's see.
See here, like if you're digging like one side of the drainage, we can go within, I think it's 13 feet of the water. So what I did a lot of times is I would take my excavator bucket and, find that line, pull that back, and then I drop a tree or two in alongside as my buffer, and then put in some silt fencing. And that'd keep us from getting, silt into the creek or anything as we're digging and ripping everything up.
Yeah, Chris, I'll try and have Eva call you tomorrow, or you can call here. She has some information you might find useful.
Stay there. Not all here.
You're welcome, Jeff. I prefer not to, Secret.
Well, that's why I picked Montana over other states, at least in this area. Because Montana is a little more pro mining.
Well, I think it's just more relaxed than all outdoor stuff. I mean, you get into the whole left coast there, and they're just overrun by environmentalists.
Well, yeah. Well, I honestly, I've had people here turn me in. There's a guy up in that drainage mining, and they come up and check and go, "Oh, yeah, we knew about you," But the people will call in. They're driving around. They're taking their dog out for a walk or whatever, or driving through the mountains, and they'll turn you in whether you're legal or not. They can't mind their own business.
Yeah, they do at the moment. We'll see what happens in the next year or two.
There ought to be some sort of a civil penalty if somebody turns in a legitimate minor.
Well, it's Karen's. I guess
You're welcome, Ragnar.
We all know that term. But
Yeah.
all right, well, thanks everybody for being here tonight, and
Yeah, we probably ought to call it a night.
fire questions to Keith.
I'm feeling a bit piggity, so get some questions up here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, Idaho forest is pretty decent. I think they're very similar to Montana here.
well, thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Robert. Glad you were here.
I'll give it my best shot. I'd say it's not the first time I've been a little laid up. This doesn't seem to be anything real serious. You're welcome, Goldstream.
Yeah, thanks for getting on tonight, because I did want to talk about Canada, and thank you for bringing up some of those subjects and that. But
Wow.
if you guys want to email Keith with questions or whatever, we will get back to you somehow.
Yeah, or just leave a comment too.
We'll bring it up on a show, another show at some point here over the winter here.
Yeah, there's a law that deals with false reports. Now, if they just enforce it, there's a lot of things that'd be nice if they'd enforce.
Yeah, because we have rights too, guys. Minors have rights.
Actually, I probably could do the jumping jacks. I doubt about the boulder lifts. Actually, no, I can't do the jumping jacks because that left shoulder's screwing up. I could do it with the right one. It's not in control, but it's fighting for control. Resort. They're. I think they've hit a wall right now, and now it's going to decide who wins.
Well, none of us have bought into the cancel culture thing anyway. I mean, unfortunately, we should have said something 5 years ago when they kept this up, but we didn't.
Well, the problem is not saying something,
golfing
it's doing
again.
something. Yeah, well, Chris, these things happen sometimes. I still think
Chris,
it's just muscle spasm. You know what it's like when your back muscle spasm.
Yeah.
I took a half a cyclobenzaprine, though. If it's muscle spasm, it'll be feeling good pretty quick, and I'll be snoring shortly thereafter.
I don't know. You having a dilated ureter is not a good sign.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I'm just a mess right at the moment. Need to go in the shop, get some repair and maintenance done. Oh. If it just had money, it would be a lot simpler.
Yeah, sometimes that doesn't make it any easier either.
No, but it does allow you to.
You're right. It gives us a chance to make some decisions without worrying about it.
You guys need your sleep. Yeah, thanks, Secret. I agree.
Yeah, thanks
completely.
everybody for being on tonight.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
And what's the pig's name again? Wilbur?
Wilbur.
Yeah. Even Wilbur say good night, everybody. Good resort. I think it takes a little more than WD-40 there. Old guy exercise program. Yeah. Chris, me and motorcycles have an agreement. I won't ride them. They won't kill me.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. And make sure you talk to Eva tomorrow. That I do take fish oil resort. A couple of days. Eva takes good care of me.
Thanks, Terry. I don't know that I'm a natural. This is new to me.
Okay,
too,
Eva.
but-
Terry missed you. He didn't see you tonight, so you need to come up with Wilbur. Hold on, Terry. Eva's coming.
She didn't give us a silver report.
Wilbur says hi. This is Wilbur. Hi, everybody. Good night, everybody. I
Yeah.
think it's a kidney stone.
It could be. Yeah,
Well,
resort.
You'll know very shortly, but you need to drink a lot of water right now.
I know a gentleman that says most people shouldn't ride motorcycles. I resemble that remark. Yeah, we're doing it, winging it. Okay, I'm going to end the live stream, folks. So, happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.
Yeah, you finished up early tonight.